Welcome back to another Sunday prep day. If you're new here, every Sunday I prep for the week. So that means cutting all my vegetables and doing a few other things that will take some time. Right now I'm soaking some black-eyed peas that I'm going to use for Meatless Monday tomorrow. So those can soak overnight. I'm also going to make some pulled pork, and I'm going to make a barbecue sauce, and I'm going to make some coleslaw. So let's just start with some garlic, get that cut up, and we'll go over the menu. So today's Sunday. For lunch, I'm gonna have some sandwiches. I have some salami and some whole wheat bread. Because if you don't know, I'm diabetic. I had to cut carbs, so I don't usually have carbs for breakfast and lunch. If I have breakfast, and my lunches are just usually low carb, keto friendly, except on the weekend when I have my cheat days. So just sandwiches for lunch because I do miss bread. So on the weekend, that's what I do. And then for dinner tonight, I'm going to make a surkål stamppot. Surkål means sauerkraut, and stamppot means a dish mashed with potatoes. So I'm going to saute some sauerkraut, not cabbage. And I'm going to mash that with some potatoes, and I have some pork chops to go with that I'll just make in the oven. And then tomorrow for Meatless Monday, for lunch, I'm going to do an omelet or a frittata kind of thing. So just eggs with lots and lots of vegetables. I'll do onions, I'll do chilies, I'll do peppers, all that good stuff. And then for dinner on Meatless Monday, like I already said, I'm going to use those black-eyed peas to make kind of like a stew or vegan chili kind of thing. I'll just see exactly how that turns out. And then we're on Tuesday, so for lunch, I'm going to have some coleslaw with some chicken. And I'm just going to make a big batch of coleslaw, so you'll see that throughout the menu, because if you make it, it's just not worth making a small batch. So I'm just using a whole small cabbage, so I'm having that for several meals this week. Like, for instance, for dinner on Tuesday, I'm going to make some pulled pork tacos, and I'm going to have that with the barbecue sauce that I'm going to make in a moment, and also with some coleslaw for some veggies. So then we're on Wednesday. I'm going to have a pork chop with some broccoli. Meanwhile, I'm just going to dice up this red onion for my coleslaw. And then for dinner, I'm going to have some pasta with some cream cheese and some chicken and just lots and lots of vegetables. And then on Thursday, so I'll probably have some pulled pork left. So I'll just do some coleslaw with some pulled pork. And then for dinner, I'm going to do a pulled pork rice bowl. So I have some broccolini left over. I'll use that with it. And I'll probably use some lime cilantro rice. For the vegan chili, I'll probably do lime cilantro rice as well, because I have plenty of limes. Then we're on Friday. For lunch, some coleslaw with some salmon, just some grilled salmon. And then for dinner, I'm going to do some fish and chips. So I have some breaded fish in the freezer, and I'll do some potato wedges or something like that. Meanwhile, for my coleslaw, this onion, I'll just put in the same container that I'm going to make my coleslaw in. But yeah, broccoli, fish, and potatoes. So then I have another onion here that I'm going to use for things like my frittata, omelette thing, my pasta, etc. So I'll just cut that into some half rings. And then I also have this yellow onion I'm going to use that for my pulled pork, and also I'll use a little bit for my barbecue sauce, because I'm going to make my barbecue sauce from actual fresh tomatoes, not tomato paste or ketchup or anything like that, just because I have tomatoes that I need to use up. Alright, then next up, some carrot. I'm just going to julienne that for my coleslaw. So I have a little bit left over from last week, so I'll use that up first. And I'll just julienne that in. I'm using a julienne slicer just because it's a lot more even than I could do it by hand and a lot quicker, but you can cut it if you want to, or use a grater. And then I'll also use a little bit from this carrot. And I'm using these big carrots. You just want like 1 or 2 regular sized carrots worth. So that's about enough for my coleslaw. And then I also want a little bit of carrot in like my frittata. And that bit I'll just save for next time. Next up, we'll do some chilies. So for the little vegan chili I'm gonna make for my pasta, for my frittata, bunch of things. So here I just have a couple of chilies, and I'm just gonna leave the seeds in and just slice them up. And then here I have some peppers. I just have a yellow and a green for no other reason than for color. Just to have a little bit of color in my dishes. So again, I'm going to use them for my vegan chili, for my frittata, for my pasta, like all these dishes. And all this pepper I'm just going to cut into cubes this time. Sometimes I use different shapes, but I just need cubes today. So I cut it one way, and then cut it another way for dices. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with the rest of this yellow one and for the green one. And then, like I said, I'm going to use some tomatoes to make barbecue sauce from scratch, because I have a bunch left over. And I'm just going to cut them smaller so I can stew them down. And I'll just do that for this whole bunch. And these bigger tomatoes I'll cut into quarters or eighths. And then these smaller ones I'll do in half or quarters. And I think that is enough. Then next up, I have some potatoes, and I'll just give them a quick peel. Now these potatoes are pretty small, so I'm using 3. If you have larger potatoes, just use 1 or 2. And I'm just going to cut these into roughly the same size chunks, and I'll just boil those and mash them with my sauerkraut tonight. Then next up, we have some cilantro for my lime cilantro rice. So I'll just give that a quick chop. And I'll just keep running my knife through until everything is nice and fine. Then for my coleslaw, I have this red cabbage. I'm just using red because that's what I had, and I like it because it's nice and small, so I can use a whole one instead of having to figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of it. So I'm just cutting them in quarters, then take the little heart piece out, the core, and I'll just slice it nice and fine as I can. And I'll just throw that in with the rest of my coleslaw ingredients, and I'll finish making the coleslaw in a moment after I finish all my cutting and stuff. Then next up, I have some broccoli, and I'll just cut off the florets and cut that into bite-sized pieces, enough for 1 portion. And I'll just save the rest for another time. And then I have one more thing to cut, and that's some mangoes. I have them in case I maybe want some breakfast or something, because I do have some yogurt. And if I don't use them for breakfast, I'm just going to have them as a snack. So I'm just going to have them ready to go. So I will eat them. So I'm just going to cut them across into little cubes basically. And then I'm going to take a spoon and just scoop everything right out. And I'm going to do that with both the halves of both these mangoes. And then there's always the part around the seed. So I just peel this real quick. And this part is way more effort to cube up than it needs, so I'm just going to have that as a snack. But yeah, we're at 27 minutes now. I finished all my cutting, so I'm going to clean up a bit, and then we're going to start making all the other things. So I've preheated my Ninja Foodie on saute, so I'm just going to add a little bit of oil. And here I have a saucepan where I'm also going to add a little bit of oil. And now that my Ninja Foodie is preheated with some oil in it, I'm going to add some stewing pork. And I'll just get some color on that. And in this little pan, I'm going to add my yellow onion and a little bit of oil, and I'll saute that. And I'll also add a little bit of garlic, and I'm going to add some salt, both to my what will be my barbecue sauce and what will be my pulled pork. And now that the onions have softened, I'm going to add some chilies as well. I'm just using red just for color. And I'm going to add in my tomatoes. And I'm just going to let all of this soften and cook down a bit. Meantime, I'll work on my coleslaw. So here I have some white pepper, just some pre-ground. I usually use fresh ground pepper, but I just don't want the chunks in this. So I'll also add a bit of salt, some mayo, and some mustard. And I will just mix all of that together. I think this is just about enough mayo to cover everything. Keep in mind that the salt is going to draw more moisture out, so it's going to be a little wetter. You don't want to overdo it, but let's give it a little taste. Yeah, that doesn't need any more salt or anything. That's perfect just as it is, so that coleslaw is ready to go for several meals this week. Meanwhile, the meat has started to brown, so I'm going to add the rest of my yellow onion and some garlic. And I'm just going to let that soften for a little bit. And now that the onions have softened, I'm just going to build up the rest of my pulled pork. So I'm going to add some lime juice. I'm using 2 limes because they're quite small. If you have large limes or very juicy ones, just use 1. And then add enough water so that most of it is submerged. So pressure lid on, valve closed, high pressure, 40 minutes because they're quite large chunks. And I'll just let that do its thing. And then in the meantime, the tomatoes have definitely started cooking down. So I'm going to build up the rest of the flavor. I'm going to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. I will add some apple cider vinegar. I don't have a liquid smoke here, so I'm just going to use some smoked chipotle powder for flavoring. And smoked paprika to get that smoky flavor. And to counteract all that acid from the apple cider vinegar, I'm going to add a bit of sugar. So I'm just using brown sugar. You can use some sugar alternative, but in this case, I'm not too worried about the sugar. So you can see how often I use this because it's clumped up, but that's fine. So I'm just going to add like 1 or 2 tablespoons, and I can always taste it and see if it needs more. So yeah, I'm just going to let this simmer and develop the flavors, and then when it's cooked down a bit more and some of the liquid has evaporated, I'll use my stick blender to get that all blended down. And yeah, that will just do its thing too, so I'll be back in a moment. The pork is done. I'm just going to use 2 forks to just shred that real quick, and it should come apart real quick. You can do it by hand, but since this is still really hot, it's just better to do that with some forks. Okay, that's all shredded. My barbecue is also done. That's cooked down quite a bit. I used fresh tomatoes, so there's a lot of moisture in there. If you're using something like tomato paste, which you can totally do, you'll want to add a little bit of water. I just wanted to get rid of water. But yeah, I'm just going to give that a quick blitz. Give that a quick taste. Yeah, there's plenty of sugar in there. You don't want to add too much. You can always add a little bit more later. Don't add too much at the start. But that's perfect, tangy, sweet, very tomatoey. So I can use that with my pulled pork. And that is it. That's all the prep work done for this week. So I can now have lunch or dinner on the table in minutes. Now, if you like this, I do this every single Sunday, and if you want to see what I do with all the ingredients that I prepped, I post every single meal on Instagram, or you can also check out the video that I post about once a month where I show you a whole week of everything I ate in a day. I posted one Friday. That was one of the longer format ones where I also show you how I made everything. So, yeah, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching. Until next time, bye for now.